Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final Exploring OnBase webinar. We're excited today to show you something really cool. It's the OnBase app builder. It is new in 23.1 and expanding every release thereafter. It is a free module. You heard it right, that's free. We're excited to show you kind of the concepts behind it, as well as give you an actual demonstration. If you had the opportunity to listen to Colleen Albert speak before, you know what you're in for. It's going to be a great treat. She is an excellent presenter. And we also have our very own Connie Mae Cooper, who will be doing a demonstration, live demonstration, I should say. So we're excited with that. And Colleen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jack, for all the kind words, but you did steal my thunder by starting with that the OnBase app builder is free. Rarely do I get to say that as an evangelist, but in this case, it is true. And I couldn't be more excited to share with your audience today, the TSC family and beyond, the new reimagined OnBase experience that is the OnBase app builder. So this new extension of the OnBase web client was released with OnBase Foundation 23.1. So roundabout September of 23. And it is a new way of thinking about shaping, designing, creating solution interfaces and user experiences. We have updated everything from the naming to the navigation to the organization of documents, filters, and features within the apps that are created. So using an HR example, this is the new and improved, think like Extreme Makeover OnBase Edition client interface. So we're using this HR example, and we have the ability for an HR rep to access employee files, change requests, assistance requests, documentation requests, and more. So all from this single view, they have the ability to process items in workflow, upload a new document, search for content. But you'll notice we're not using any OnBase naming conventions. We're speaking to the user in their language. And this new app design is responsive all the way down to a tablet. So it is both desktop and mobile responsive all in one. What it represents is a shift in our OnBase user experience. Instead of tailoring the navigation to OnBase workflow is going to be over here and custom queries are going to be over there. And if you want to fill out a form, you go up here. We have tailored the experience to the persona, to the person and how and why they work, the job that they need to get done. And we've removed some of the OnBase lexicon that goes with many of our traditional client interfaces. We tried to pull out some of the OnBase or Highland nomenclature and instead speak to the user in their language using their terminology. So what we're going to talk about today, and then of course I'm going to pass over to Connie here right in smack dab in the middle for a live demo. We're going to talk about how we can have a beginner's mind and think about the OnBase user experience in a new way. I'm going to show you the solution and the tools that you can use right now on OnBase 23.1 to get started. And then we'll see a demo. You know, what can you build? I really think that the possibilities are endless. You think of that person that is maybe not in and out of OnBase all day, but we do need to bring them some capabilities, some content. The sky is really the limit in terms of what we can design with the OnBase app builder. So it starts by having a beginner's mind, a fresh perspective, and thinking differently about what an OnBase experience could look like. But first, what was the impetus for this whole OnBase app builder? Well, you know, we were hearing from our customers, our OnBase users, that the OnBase interface at times looked old and maybe outdated or antiquated, and that there were too many features, buttons, clicks, you know, pieces to navigate to get to where the user needed to be. We also heard that maybe the modular organization doesn't necessarily work. I need pieces of those different components presented in a different way. And then lastly, that maybe the software terminology was unfamiliar. Yes, we speak OnBase, if you will, and we know what a multi-instance keyword type group is, but our end HR user does not. You know, as a little anecdote here, I've been the evangelist for the Unity client for years. I think around 2009 is when we introduced that interface. And since its impetus, I would always get the question, is there any way we could reduce the number of buttons on the ribbon? And unfortunately, the answer was, in many cases, no, they're static. Well, what if we had that opportunity to present to the user just the features that they needed to see? And we decided to do that. We needed to take a fresh approach. Now, we can and will continue to update and expand our OnBase clients, certainly when it comes to the OnBase web and mobile interfaces. But to really do this right, we wanted to, instead of just updating an existing interface, really think about doing it new, and in many cases, doing it right, which meant we had to think differently. We wanted to provide a more intuitive interface with streamlined views in the user's language. And I think this is the biggest thing, doing less with more focus, organizing features, functions, documents, forms by case and not by OnBase feature or module, so that we can bring more users into the OnBase fold. The bottom line is that these interfaces are designed with the end user in mind. Think about the last time, maybe just yesterday, Valentine's Day, when you gave someone a gift. You didn't just grab any old gift and, chuck it at them. You said, who is this person that I care deeply about? And what do they care about? What do they need? What do they love? What would make them happy? And you bought a gift with them in mind. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with these interfaces, to design a solution interface with the end user, the person who is actually going to use it, in mind. So now that you kind of have in the back of your head where we're going, let's talk about what tools are available for you to get started building interfaces today. And we've got an OnBase app builder that you're going to use from OnBase Studio to design these interfaces. But just like OnBase workflow, maybe before you create your first app or your first life cycle or your first form, you need to ask yourself, who is my audience, right? Who is my end user? What do they care about? And what do I need them to do? And once you have that mapped out, that becomes your guiding light, your vision for what your app is going to be. Our users need apps that are functional, obvious in terms of the actions to perform, complete access to everything they need, user-friendly that doesn't require any training, self-service so they can do it themselves without a job aid or having to go to an administrator. They need to be efficient, not too many clicks to get to what they need, and they should be designed deliberately. Everything available to the user needs to have a purpose. And what's so funny is that as a presenter, we actually apply a lot of these same principles when we're designing our presentations. There isn't a reason for putting a slide into a deck, then maybe it doesn't belong there at all. We're always asking ourselves, how can the content be complete and friendly and efficient and deliberate in the messages that we're sending? So back to the OnBase app builder. It really is a new and improved front end for OnBase. You're going to take your existing data, documents, processes, forms, reports, file cabinets and folders, workflows, everything you've already created in OnBase, and then within OnBase Studio, tailor a brand new interface designed with the end user in mind, pulling from these different sources, these different actions and activities. And then you give them the access to the app via a browser. It's a simple URL. That's the extension of the OnBase web client, which is the one license you do need to have. And then the end users can begin. So a little bit behind the scenes for those of us OnBase enthusiasts. The OnBase apps are a new UI layer, a new front end. They do not store the data or the documents. The standard OnBase database disk groups do. Admins can also create multiple flavors of an app based on persona or role. We have two different people in HR that might have two very different needs, let alone individuals in other departments. This is available through the OnBase web server, and it is a key component of our OnBase journey to web and mobile as we begin to reduce our reliance on the OnBase Thick and Unity client. It's going to use your same authentication. It's going to be responsive to desktop and tablet devices. They really are mobile ready down to the tablet size. And it does support URL access, bookmarking, deep linking, so you can go right to a particular page or a tab. And we're staying true to our point and click configurable routes. This is all configured or created within OnBase Studio. So the apps are made up of three basic components: screens, the presentation, the sources, the data we're presenting, and the actions that the users can take. And we'll talk first about some screens. This is our quick access screen that can be customized with a logo. Those different tabs at the top represent various screens. As we look a little bit more closely at the app, we see those white rectangles, which are cards. We see action tiles, which are maybe submission of a new form. And we see source tiles right down the middle. Those are all workflow cues with the counts represented in big bold font right in front of the user. Another screen is that of a master detail screen. Now, this might look a little more familiar to us that are familiar with the document hit list within OnBase. This is a presentation of a workflow queue. I can group, stack, sort this list. I can click on a document and open it up. I can submit a new form right from here, and I can take action on that item as I open it. In terms of sources, we can pull from folders, documents, workflow queues, and present reporting dashboards. So here is a custom query folder search. I'm going to find the folder for a particular employee and open my file cabinets and folders display, something that I've already pre-configured in OnBase behind the scenes. Not only does this aggregate a large collection of documents, but folders, as we know, create and populate themselves, and notice in red in the bottom left-hand corner, they also identify what's missing to the user without them having to find out in another way. Here's our custom query document search. Now I'm looking for an individual document. I've entered my search criteria and I open it up. I work with that document, and along the top, this item is in a workflow queue, even though I found it from a custom query, and I can execute my ad hoc task directly from the document. Look at all those options along the right-hand side of things I can do. This is a living, breathing OnBase document that is thriving in OnBase workflow to move a business process forward. And this workflow in these OnBase apps includes all of our suspended tasks as well, where we might suspend the process, ask the user for more information, such as a form, quick, please fill this out, and then we'll keep moving forward. And here's a final item in a workflow queue, again, with those tasks along the top on my form, with the ability to add additional information. And then, of course, we have our reporting dashboards. Again, reports that have been pre-configured, presented to the user as they make sense. Instead of all the reports in my dashboards view, just the ones that this user needs, aggregated and coupled right alongside all of their other employee information. And then lastly, in our family of three, screen, sources, actions, what can a user do from within the app beyond just looking at content, right? So the first would be to upload a document. Here's just a quick example. Here we see our web upload panel, and that's what we mean when we say it's an extension. They enter the information and the document is in OnBase. They can also create a brand new Unity form, fill it out, support for autofills, and it's in. Here's another example. There's our data, and we're in. So what does the configuration look like? And we are almost to that live demo. Well, again, this is all happening via a new App Builder tab in OnBase Studio. And you'll notice we set up our various screens. And then within those screens, we have different tiles for our sources and actions that the user can take, along with some simple theming along the right-hand side. Now watch closely as this configuration in Studio translates into the front-end user experience. And I show you this configuration in this way because you might think that behind the scenes there's a designer to place all these tiles in the appropriate place. And maybe someday that idea will come to fruition. But right now, the way the screens, the actions, the sources, all of the different tiles and cards, if you will, are created in Studio is how they will appear in the front-end user experience. And to someone like me, this sounds like a blessing because now all I have to do is configure things in order, move them around, and that's going to be the front-end presentation to my end user. All right, so from here, now that I've wet your whistle, gotten you excited about what's new with OnBase App Builder, I'm going to turn it over to Connie May to talk about what is actually in the software and to give us a live software demo. So Connie May Cooper, over to you.
Thank you so much, Colleen. So as Colleen was stating, this is really about user experience. It's really about a persona-based presentation of things that you already have in your solution design. So I'm logged in as a user who's was responsible for licensing for their dog licenses. They're involved in agenda management, and they're also on the board of review. So this job has changed, and there's a couple things I'd like to change in this presentation because they're never going to go to dog licensing anymore. So let's get rid of that. And you know what? When I get down to agenda management, I need to have a little bit more information because legal doesn't really tell me what's going on there. So I need to have a little bit more information. So I'm going to go into Studio now and show you what's actually happening and how easy it is to make this design. And as Colleen indicated, it is in 23.1 and it shows up as an additional tab in your repository. So I'm going to select App Builder here. And on my front screen, I'm going to just quickly go into my application and I'm going to add a logo because I want it to really represent what's going on here. And like we said, we no longer need to worry about dog licensing. So I'm actually just going to remove that entire display and take that card out of there. So with that card gone, now agenda management's there. There's my actions that we talked about. And legal, I was saying, I need a little bit more information. And this is actually legal approvals. And then I can go on and I can continue to add additional cards. I can add additional titles, but really anything that you already have built in your solution can be added through this interface, and it's still the same point and click things that you're accustomed to. I can right click at any level and add a new element. Depending on where you click, just like in workflow, you can add different things. But with that, I'm satisfied with the changes that I've made. So I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. And then I'm going to jump right back into my application here. I'm going to first log out and then refresh my cache because we know that a lot of times web pages don't like to, or they hang on to old information. And I'm going to log in again. And there my changes have already taken place. It was just that easy. So dog license is still available to me, but it's not presented front and center because it's not what this user uses most often. Again, for user experience, present the user with what they're going to most often use. You don't necessarily have to completely take it away, but it's all about presentation. Added the logo to make it a little bit prettier, and I added this label so it's more meaningful to the end user. It's really that simple. And I just want to encourage everyone, if you haven't, if you have 23.1 and you want to give it a try, it really is that easy. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Colleen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I love the custom logo. And I should mention everyone on the line that I failed to do earlier, which is if you have any questions, type them into the chat. We've saved a couple moments at the end to take some of your questions live, and we would love to hear from you. So even if it is just a hi, hello, love what I'm seeing, I've got an idea for a use case, interact with us. We'd love to learn a little bit more about what questions you have and what you're thinking. So what Connie and I have both presented is the initial release of the OnBase App Builder in OnBase Foundation 23.1. But I want to give you a quick preview into OnBase Foundation 24.1, which is about to be released here at the end of the month, early March. But first, please note when it comes to the roadmap that feature parity is not the goal. And what I mean by that is that we're not trying to create another OnBase client that comes with this giant matrix of, is this feature in web? Is it in Unity? Is it in the app builder? This is an extension of the web client. If we're missing features that you need to build the app that your users desire, of course, let us know. But we don't see this as being an interface that will have absolutely every OnBase feature imaginable. What is slated for the near term is that of WorkView, which I'm going to show you next. That's why it's bold. That'll be coming in 24.1, as well as in the future, maybe by 25.1, some translation and localization, as well as full text search capabilities for OnBase apps, which I think would be extremely powerful. So let's take a look at the app builder in 24.1. This is a workview based dashboard. And so in this particular example, our fictitious example, we're managing our expense reimbursement process. And we have an app built that caters to both end user employees who are submitting expenses, as well as the management team, their manager, that needs to approve them. So here's just another look at an OnBase app where we see some actions, some sources, some screens, and a custom logo. When the requester needs to request expense reimbursement, what they're doing, right, is really creating a new workview object. So this is an action just like creating a new form would be. They fill it out, we see some instructions on the bottom, they can even attach their receipt. That's all part of it. Once that expense has been submitted, they can of course look in their workview filters, looks a lot like our document and workflow queues, a list of all of the expenses or workview objects that meet that filter criteria. Now, one item of note here is that these are all static filters. The user is unable to enter any workview filter constraints. However, they are able to do that same grouping, stacking, sorting within the list. So they're not limited in terms of their search capabilities from an app perspective. So here's a look at that item that they just submitted. And again, here we see our workview object. Down at the bottom, it's a little covered up, but that would be our document viewer that has that expense reimbursement or that picture of that receipt that they submitted along with the expense. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to be in the shoes of the approver. So now this is the manager. And you'll notice that they have a couple extra tabs across the top. Not only are they submitting their own expenses as an employee, but they are also approving expenses from their team. They also have access to dashboards and some administrative features, both of which I'll show you. So now when they open up that same request for expense reimbursement that Helen submitted, they see in the upper right-hand corner 2 actions that they can take. The ability to return this, hey, I need more information, I'm rejecting it, or approving that expense reimbursement. Now, what's really special about Workview that I think extends nicely here to the OnBase App Builder is the ability for some of the data classes to be administered by super users from the app itself. So if we look at our example within this expense reimbursement, our administrator, who may or may not be also be a manager, right? Who knows? They also have the ability to create a new employee, create that new class, to create a new expense category or create a new department. So if you look at all of our departments down the center, this super user, this administrative user has the ability to edit and add to the data within the application. New employees, new departments, new expense categories, new cost centers, whatever that might be. And what is the power here? Well, in Workview in general, right, that means that from the app, this type of app-driven data can be added to by the users themselves. They don't need to engage and someone in IS or IT or an OnBase administrator to do it. When you add the OnBase App Builder into the equation, that also means that maybe from their iPad they're doing it, from a browser. They don't need the full-fledged Workview experience in order to get this done. And I felt that was really worth highlighting. So yes, while we're adding Workview objects and filters here to our OnBase App Builder, we're also adding the power that those types of tools provide solutions in general, now from an interface that's a lot easier to distribute and to access because it is responsive all the way down to the tablet, making for a seamless end user experience. But of course, I would have to mention that, of course, right, it's all in how you configure these screens in terms of their responsiveness. In some cases, it can be responsive all the way down to the phone, but sometimes our web controls are not there yet, the Unity form is not there yet, or our Workview data, it just has so many tabs and screens and items that it just really doesn't resolve to the phone. But it is possible to get there based on what you create. And here's just a little bit behind the scenes, our Workview filter now available in Studio, as well as that source configuration, again, all from Studio. So we want your feedback. This is just what's new in OnBase Foundation 24.1. We welcome your ideas and input. You can give them to TSC, you can give them to me, you can get with the Highland product team. Please let us know. So we've talked about having a new mind for what it means to think about an OnBase interface. I've showed you some of the innovation tools to get you started and the endless possibilities in terms of what you can build. So I'll pause here and ask if there are any questions. Jack, do we have anything?
Hi, Colleen. It does look like we did have a few questions come in.
Okay, sure, hit me.
First off, are there any special user groups required in OnBase to create or use the app builder?
Well, certainly you'll need administrative privileges to design the apps in Studio. And then from an end user perspective, typically you'd just be using your existing user groups, although of course you can create new ones in OnBase too, and you'll give them special access to the app as you design an app that's specific to them and their job role.
Perfect. Next, on the upload document action, can you make it generic instead of assigning a specific document to upload?
Right now, you do have to choose the document type that you are going to upload to. It can't be generic into some queue at this time. It is using the web client document upload control, which does require you to select that document type, but that is a piece of feedback that we've gotten. So it almost reaffirms it here to hear it again. Good question.
Awesome. And then next, Colleen, does OnBase App Builder have any mobile capabilities? I know you touched on this already a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good to clarify. We do consider this to be a web app, meaning that it is supported via a browser on a desktop or a tablet device. While it will work on a mobile phone in some cases, depending on how it's configured, the controls you use, the way your Unity forms look, all those things, it will be more or less responsive to a phone. But it is browser-based. It is not an OnBase app that you're going to download from your app store to your phone. So they are just slightly different, even though really the capabilities are similar.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
Colleen, next we have a question about displaying related items within a workflow type queue. Do we have the capability to do that?
We do. It will look a little different though. So you're not going to see that related document panel side by side within your workflow queue like you're used to. It will be represented now in the form of an ad hoc task that a user could click on and then view those related documents. So the capability is there. The user experience is a little bit different. Great question.
Perfect. And then lastly, Colleen, are there any OnBase App Builder training materials available? And if so, where can I find them?
Oh my gosh, what a perfect question and segue into our conclusion here. Yes, we've got information on community, on try.highland, as well as on training.highland.com or university.highland.com. And I'll ask you first, Jack, if there are any more questions. And then if not, I'll show you exactly how to get to those sites. Thank you so much for all these questions. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, Colleen. I think that wraps us up with the questions.
Oh, okay, very good. Well, then I just, not to toot our own horn, you don't have to take my word for it, but the OnBase App Builder was considered a standout innovation in OnBase Foundation 23.1. We talked about some of the key features, custom queries, workflow dashboards, Unity forms, as well as WorkView being added in Foundation 23.1. You will need 23.1 or greater, and you will need OnBase Studio. So here's where you can get more information to Jack's question. First, on community, OnBase App Builder has its own community at highland.com. You'll also notice a free, and I mean free, training class on university.highland. You do not have to have premium subscription to access this. And then lastly, I invite you to check out try.highland.com. The OnBase App Builder and the ability to launch a demo lab that's already got Foundation 23.1 up and running, some pieces of an OnBase app shell already created out there for you, the ability to build a new one and play with it without having to do an upgrade, without worry about messing anything in your test environment. Please check out try.highland.com. It's one of my favorite places to go to experience our software, to learn more about it, and to grab all the screenshots that you see here. So I invite you to have a beginner's mind when thinking about designing new OnBase experiences for your end users. And with that, I thank you so much for your time today. I thank you, TSC, for having me. It is always a pleasure. You guys are some of my favorites, and you make doing these webinars so fun, informative, and easy. Connie, you crushed that demo. Jack, thanks for the questions. And everyone, have a great afternoon.